This exchange between Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin and Governor Kristi Noem is one of those rare moments in congressional hearings where the stakes become immediately clear, not because of shouting or theatrics, but because of simple, direct questions that go unanswered. Slotkin, who brings decades of national security experience from the CIA, the Pentagon, and frontline counterterrorism work, isn't speaking as a partisan.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here. You know, Michigan's a border state, so we need each other. We have a very big bridge that's being inaugurated, ribbon cut in September. We need that to be fully staffed. We have a lot going on in Michigan as a northern border state, so we need each other. But what I'm concerned about is that you've taken the mandate to close off the border beyond going after, as you say, the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants. I'm a CIA officer. I work my entire life to protect the homeland. If someone's here illegally, they need to not be here. They've committed a crime by being here. They need to go back to wherever they're from. But my concern is that either through sloppiness or intent, you have gone far beyond going after the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants and gone into legal immigrants who were given the ability to be here, and even American citizens. And when I think about that, you know, there are lots of people in this country, including me, who have families who fled this kind of environment where they have no rights, where they have no due process, where they don't have habeas corpus. So while I'll be the first to say, coming from a state that was won by Trump, that there is a mandate to do something about the border, I think it is absolute dangerous overreach to go beyond that and start picking up American citizens and people who have the legal right to be here, lawful immigrants who have done everything right. So first and foremost, do you acknowledge that your department has made some mistakes, any mistakes, in going after either American citizens or legal immigrants here in the time that you've been in office?
We have not deported any U.S. citizens.
Detained?
Or people get interviewed. If they get interviewed and they go through that process and we find that they're U.S. citizens or legal immigrants, they stay in the United States.
Have you deported
we have to go through the vetting process.
Have any American citizens, including children, been deported during your time in office?
We have children that mothers have chosen to keep with them. So those
by my count, you have 10 American citizens, including children with cancer, who have been deported out of the country. I understand you're saying it's their choice.
But it's hard to imagine
a small child having a choice. But have you gone after legal immigrants? Again, your standard in your opening statement was the most dangerous illegal immigrants. Does that include PhD students and master's students at colleges across the country, unarmed? Are they the most dangerous illegal when they have status and no weapons?
I don't decide who gets status through a student program. This Department of State decides that, and we enforce it.
Oh, come on.
That's what our Department of Homeland Security does.
I just would offer that, again, I have no qualms with going after folks who are here illegally. That is not my concern. That was part of my job, is to prevent people from coming here illegally in a former life. My concern is you're sending a chill down the spine of America by going after people who either have legal status or American citizens. And when my colleagues ask you about habeas corpus, and you say, literally, we can review the tape, that you believe it's a right the president has. You sat here in front of all of us and swore an oath to the Constitution, and that is not at all what habeas corpus is. It is a right that we all get, that American citizens get, that people who are in the United States legally have. So my concern is it's complete overreach. I don't think American citizens, even those who voted for Trump, believe that you should be able to just grab someone off the street, sloppy, who has the legal right to be here, and certainly an American citizen. And I just am concerned that while you say you're going after the most dangerous folks, what you're actually doing is going after folks for political reasons, right? A PhD student that's unarmed is not at the top of the list.
And we're not deporting U.S. citizens, and we're not deporting people who have legal status here.
10 American citizens
If the children have gone with their parents, it's because their parents wanted them with them.
So let me ask you another question about cybersecurity. You know, you've cut $500 million from the budget. What specific programs are you cutting? Because there are programs that really aid states and locals that we depend on for cybersecurity. And we know that right now, while we may have good security in the federal government, if you are a local state official, you're depending on the federal government. So have you cut the ISAC program, the program to states and locals on cybersecurity.
The president's recommended budget has a reduction in $491
Does it cut
million.
that program? I've heard the
and what
talking
it's doing
point.
is
Does it
putting
cut the
CISA
program?
back on mission.
And it's
you can't
ensuring
say
that this is the most
cybersecurity is going to be strengthened.
You cannot say it's the most cyber secure administration if you're cutting the program to my state and to your state.
It will
and if you
be
look
when
on
we-
record, that's what you've cut. I yield back.
She's speaking as someone who understands what it means when a government begins deporting people who have legal status, or worse, American citizens. Slotkin begins by explaining why this topic matters personally to her and to her state. Michigan is a border state, not in the southern sense we usually talk about, but as a major northern gateway with the busiest border crossing in the country. They rely on coordination with DHS daily. So when she pushes back on extreme immigration enforcement that sweeps up American citizens or lawful immigrants, she's doing it from the perspective of someone who has seen what happens when a government begins deporting people who have legal status, or worse, American citizens. Slotkin begins by explaining why this topic matters personally to her and to her state. Michigan is a border state, not in the southern sense we usually talk about, but as a major northern gateway with the busiest border crossing in the country. They rely on coordination with DHS daily. So when she pushes back on extreme immigration enforcement that sweeps up American citizens or lawful immigrants, she's doing it from the perspective of someone who has seen what happens in countries where due process collapses. And she makes it clear, protecting the border and respecting constitutional rights are not mutually exclusive. The heart of this exchange is simple but critical. Slotkin asks directly whether the department has mistakenly detained or deported American citizens or legal immigrants. Noem repeatedly claims we have not deported any U.S. citizens, but Slotkin brings the receipts, at least 10 documented cases of American citizens, including children with cancer, being deported under Noem's watch. The way Noem tries to explain this away, saying that they chose to go with their parents, ignores the obvious. A 4-year-old with cancer is not choosing to leave the United States. It shows a level of detachment from real-world consequences that's honestly chilling. What Slotkin exposes here is not a policy disagreement, but a fundamental misunderstanding or rejection of due process. When she presses Noem about habeas corpus, she's pointing out something deeply serious, the idea that people on U.S. soil, even legal immigrants, could be detained or deported without the constitutional right to challenge it. Slotkin reminds her that she swore an oath to the Constitution, not to a president. And this is where the gulf widens. Noem continually frames enforcement as a mandate to do whatever it takes, but Slotkin shows that the real issue isn't enforcement, it's overreach. Then there's the example Slotkin gives of a PhD student, someone with legal status, vetted, unarmed, studying in the United States, being swept up as if they were a violent threat. That's not targeted enforcement, that's political enforcement. The conversation shifts to cybersecurity, and once again, Slotkin highlights the disconnect between rhetoric and reality. Noem and her allies keep claiming it's the most cybersecure administration, yet they've cut nearly $500 million from programs that states and local governments depend on to defend against cyber attacks. Anyone working in state or local government will tell you, this isn't abstract. These grants fund the frontline defenses that protect hospitals, water systems, police networks, schools, everything we rely on. Cutting cybersecurity support while calling the administration the strongest on cybersecurity is like bragging about having the safest highways while slashing funding for road maintenance. The thread running through all of Slotkin's questioning is accountability, not for political points, not for theatrics, but because when government power expands without checks, when enforcement becomes sloppy, when constitutional rights become optional, the consequences land on real people. Cancer patients, students, families, citizens. And that's why this moment matters. Slotkin isn't just holding Noem's feet to the fire. She's drawing a line in the sand about what it means to enforce the law while still living up to American values. Transparency, accuracy, and constitutional rights aren't extras. They're the foundation. And when those begin to crack, the entire system becomes unstable. If you want more breakdowns like this, where we go deeper than the headlines and talk about what these exchanges actually mean for everyday Americans, make sure you're subscribed. And if you found this commentary helpful, share it with someone who cares about understanding the difference between strong border enforcement and uncontrolled executive power.